So did the FBI double inmate 163214's DNA? No. But we're going to address this clip from Birdie because he's not the only person trying to claim that the DNA was manipulated and doubled in size.
Brian's DNA SNP doubled in size. This happened after it left the lab and before it got to the FBI. And the New York Times wrote an entire article. Israeli scientists were able to completely fabricate one's DNA without even having a sample tissue.
I'm talking about the next set of moves that are super secret that happen when there's a portion of the DNA taken and it's searched by Othram to create a SNP. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so we're going to address this. The DNA sample did not double in size. The SNP profile is what is said to have doubled in size. Those are two completely different things. So first we're going to start out with what is SNP because I wanted to make this educational as well. So what is a SNP? SNP is single nucleotide polymorphisms. They're frequently called SNPs, and they are the most common type of genetic variation among people. Each SNP represents a difference in a single DNA building block called a nucleotide. SNPs occur normally throughout a person's DNA. They occur almost once in every 1,000 nucleotides on average, which means there are roughly 4 to 5 million SNPs in a person's genome. So did you catch that? 4 to 5 million SNPs. So that means when they have a DNA sample, they can create an SNP profile that has up to 4 to 5 million SNPs to look at, different markers to look at. So they can expand that out to have a higher chance of finding a familial hit, like a family tree match. So let's continue. Did the FBI double the sample size, as has been claimed? No. The FBI only doubled the profile, not the sample. That simply means they expanded the number of SNP markers in the file uploaded to the genetic genealogy databases. For example, instead of searching using 300,000 markers, you could expand it to 600,000 markers to get a better chance at finding familial matches on the family tree. No DNA is added or manipulated. Some FYIs about the IgG process, and this is to better help you understand the distinction. A biological DNA sample is the genetic material. So in this case, that was the DNA that was left on the knife sheath, the skin cells. That's the sample. The SNP upload file is the list of genetic markers extracted from the sample sequencing data. So that's a profile. The sample is not the same as the profile. Now, labs do not examine all 4 to 5 million SNPs that are in your DNA profile, in your genome. Instead, they look at a subset panel. Consumer kits like Ancestry.com typically look at 600,000 to 700,000 SNPs, while GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA usually look at up to 650,000 SNPs. And this information is all available on the genetic genealogy database websites. So, what that means is when the FBI took the information from Othram and started doing the rest of the genetic genealogy process, they expanded the number of SNPs to be looked at in the genealogy databases. So the computer file with the number of SNPs doubled in size. The DNA did not double, okay? The sample size did not double, just the profile doubled because they opened it up to look at more markers. Think of it as having a photograph, and when you go to download it, you can choose high resolution or low resolution. The photograph is still the same, but the file is going to be bigger based on which resolution you choose. The high resolution will have a larger file. So all they did was expand the number of SNPs from what Othram was using, and then ran more SNPs through the genetic genealogy databases. No manipulation was done. And that clip he had of Anne talking in court made it a little confusing. But if we actually look at the information that was in the redacted hearing in February of last year, you'll see that she was talking about the SNP profile and not the actual DNA being doubled in size. So Ann Taylor says, Mr. Hellwig, you mentioned the size of the two SNP profiles for GEDmatch Pro and Family Tree DNA. 550,000 or 650,000 seemed to be the maximum. If you had a case where you had produced a file to upload, an upload file, and it had, let's say, 600,000 in it, could you take that text file and turn it into twice that big? He answered, I'm not sure how we would do that, no. He then went on to say an important note here was that was just IMF's policy. We generated upload files specific to each one of the databases, and that's the number we had within our bioinformatic package. That is not necessarily what would be true of others. That being said, if theoretically we were to deliver our upload file to our client and it, say, had 500,000 SNPs on it, I don't know of a mechanism to add SNPs in that manner without going back to our raw data. So then Anne says, in this particular case, I know you haven't gotten involved in all the ins and outs, but did we provide you what we received in regular discovery, the Othram file and the FBI file, upload files? And he answers, yes, I did receive the two upload files. One was a text file that came from Othram Labs, and one was an Excel file that came from the FBI. And Anne says, is that also an upload file? And he answers, yep, both of them are upload files. They contain exactly that, a listing of SNPs, the call, and their location in a format that would allow them to be uploaded to databases. And Anne asks what was the difference in size. And he says, the FBI upload file had significantly more SNPs called than the Othram file. So did you see that? They were not talking about the DNA sample doubling. They were talking about the file with the number of SNP markers doubling. And of course, he was talking about how they'd have to go back to the raw data to do that, because you have to go back and look at the SNP profile to expand those markers. But those were both files, Othram's and the FBI's, that were uploaded to the genealogy databases. That was not the DNA sample. It was the SNP profile, and the FBI expanded the markers. So no DNA was doubled in size. They strictly opened it up to look for more markers that they could get a match to. And that Israeli study that Bertie mentions has nothing to do with the Idaho 4 case. It was a study in a controlled environment, had nothing to do with SNP profiles, with SNP markers, and was not used in this case at all. So hopefully this helps clarify that, because Bertie's not the only one I've seen claiming that the DNA doubled in size. And that's absolutely false. It did not double in size.